right, so I'll also be the moderator for today. I wear many hats, guys. So, my first actually thing in doing a panel. So introduce yourself, guys. It's the very best thing that you can do in this space. Let's start with you, going there.
Thanks, Myrtle. Sawadika, Thailand, make some noise. Come on, you guys can do better than this. Come on, once again, Sawadika, Thailand. How's investment texture? I mean, first and foremost, big credit as I to Peach for organizing this. It's great to be back as I to Thailand after 5 years, and of course, excited. Not a morning person like Myrtle, but I guess let's just rock the stage then.
You know, my Calendly is set up like 4 p.m. onwards, Arthur. So I
mine's not too bad.
understand.
Mine's 12 p.m. then. So yeah, just quick intros about myself. I'm Arthur Tan from Metapac Group, originally from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So we are ecosystem builder and venture builder where we help support companies to scale and grow, and also to invest in the early stage as Web3 infrastructure companies. So looking forward to create more insights, and hopefully you were able to gain some takeaways after the session.
Thank you so much. And next,
All right. Hello guys. My name is Cyrus. I'm a partner at Newman Capital. We are Web3 VC based out of Hong Kong. So we've been investing in crypto blockchain since 2016. Myself, I have a strong exchange background. I actually part of the early FTX team in Hong Kong. So before I joined this fund, so things like DeFi still get excited to me. And also, besides Web3, we actually also invest quite a lot in Web2, like private equity, tech unicorns, that kind of thing. We also actively investing in the alternative investment market, like fine arts, collectible, things like that. And of course, Web3 is the area that we see is the biggest opportunities right now. So we want to focus more in the space, and really happy to share my insights and learn from other panelists here today.
thank you. And next up,
Well, thank you very much, Myrtle. First, I want to thank organizer and Peach for putting the show together. Very great. Myrtle, as you said, we met 2 years ago online and finally meet face to face. Very nice to meet you in person. We do two things as Sinofy. First, we tell stories. We look for infrastructure projects that tell good stories, and we try to take them across Asia Pacific and help them to get capital. We make pre-seed investments. That's the first thing that we do. Second thing what we do, we develop sort of growth hacking strategies in partnership with our affiliates and in-house. And the third thing that we do, we tell you stories in the West, primarily across North America, in the US, in Europe. And somehow, after pre-seed investment, it would be our job to tell you a story and take it across Asia Pacific and in Europe and try to get the capital.
all right, thank you so much. And lastly,
Yeah, thanks so much for coming today. It's awesome to have you guys here on a weekend. I'm Toby. We run Blockchain Founders Fund. We have a 250 million AUM fund. We invested in 100 plus startups in the crypto space. We're actively deploying. I think we're one of the very few still actively deploying. We're targeting about 50 companies a year to give you sort of a range. We're looking at pre-seed, seed stage, so very early. Invest anything between 100K to 5 million US in promising startups with promising founders. Quite agnostic in the space and also quite agnostic in the location of the startups. Right now it's about 40% US, and then sort of it distributes down to Asia, still being a big part of the deal flow piece. We just established a new office in India, so we're looking at that space right now. And also I spent quite a bit of time in the Middle East, as I do think there's a lot of promise as well. Thank you.
all right, thank you so much. So let's proceed to the first question. So this one is very important for us to discuss, because we need to discuss the latest trends that's happening in the investment landscape. Because way back 2020, there's shitcoins, right? 2021, there's actually GameFi. And then 2022, so basically I saw esports. So there's esports already. And then now, what do you think basically is going to be the next trend this 2023? In your own opinion, this is not a financial advice, guys, okay? So let's start with Arthur.
So non-financial advice, just personal thoughts. So I guess first and foremost, I think after seeing what happened with the post FTX debacle, we're seeing that DeFi space is definitely growing. While we are also seeing that the entire CeFi it's currently going through under consolidation. I personally believe that there will be more technology and protocols to be developed in the DeFi space. I'll give you for example, like there's just so much that's going on just within the DeFi space. For instance, like the wallet custody, payment integration, and even improvement in the whole UX user experience just in the wallet. Because too often if you're going to start speaking to people about setting up DeFi, the first thing they will possibly think, oh, like it's so much of difficulties and challenges in just understanding the mechanics of it. So I think we're looking forward to see that how everything is coming together and already connecting the dots. Of course, we're seeing institutions are also deploying a lot of blockchain data. We're seeing that Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, Fidelity is jumping on this and just fully capitalize and fully leverage on the blockchain space itself. Not forgetting, I think the whole entire ZK right now ecosystem will be improving, and I think just the ZK space itself is just so much for a new relook, a new rebrand to it, just to really make things easier to be understanding. We're seeing how like compounds ZK as well. So I think from that space itself, just providing more data security, more data transparency, I think that's really coming along. Other than that, I think bigger financial institutions are definitely tokenizing their financial assets. Of course, like Disney, Adidas, Starbucks as well, is slowly, gradually getting into the space, and definitely that's one trend we're looking at. On top of that, in the NFT space itself, I would say that NFTs is always going to be great for utilities and all. Essentially, that we see that big brands will definitely move into the NFT space just to really bridge the gap between the offline and also the digital world itself. But all in all, something that's very close to my heart would be, I think that's something that's very untouched and unspoken, which is refi. And probably this could probably be something very new to a lot of people. The reimagine finance. I think too often in this space, we're all talking about the financial gains. But what if we start looking through, what if a blockchain-based project were able to impact the society and also the livelihood of the people? And that is something I'm very excited to be seeing in the agriculture, in the climate, and especially in this region that we're living in, Southeast Asia. I mean, in the city that I'm living, Kuala Lumpur, the moment once when the river banks burst, and you will see a flood happening in the capital of Kuala Lumpur. What if a blockchain were able to deploy and providing that transparency and providing that heads up to people? And I think there's something a very exciting space that we'll be seeing that how reimagine finance to be shaping just through blockchain data.
Very good point, especially when it comes to the security, because most of the labs as well in other centralized exchanges are actually investing in securities, right? The cybersecurity, how can we actually implement more tighter security for blockchain projects? And of course, other things like other blockchain layer 1. So Aptos, there's a lot of people building in Aptos, Sui, right? So thank you so much for touching that. And by the way, you're so energetic because when I went to Malaysia, they're all serious people. You're the first one that I actually saw very energetic. Thank you so much, Arthur. And next up, of course.
So, what I see is that I believe the mass adoption of Web3 is still a major narrative this year, or even in the coming few years. So when we talk about mass adoption, in my opinion, the current state of DeFi is definitely not for mass adoption. I think, even though I have a very strong DeFi background, but I strongly believe that right now, DeFi, the current state of DeFi is just for a small group of people, right? They can make money out of it. They're smart guys, but honestly speaking, if you talk to an average internet user what DeFi is, come on, there's no way that they can understand what's happening in DeFi. But so that's why I think things like games and all this stuff is actually performed pretty well last year, even the year before. What I see is that Web3 social is going to be something that we're able to drive the next wave of growth of Web3. So you can think of it. Basically, everybody's on social media right now, right? No matter you're Web3, Web2, Web1, Web0, you're either on Facebook, IG, TikTok, or LinkedIn, whatever platform. Imagine something that can, like a social media platform or a protocol that able to harness the power of Web3 and put it in the social media, and that, I believe that's something we're able to drive meaningful mass adoption. Secondly, I think entertainment it could be a good potential space. With integration of NFTs, tokenomics, I think you're able to help like those NFTs with getting real life, utilities and things like that. So, for example, I have some sort of NFT membership pass, and then I go to a Blackpink show, and then I'm able to go in the backstage and whatever. So I think things like this will take off later this year. So that's why we've been looking for the next generation of social infrastructures, social applications, entertainment related, things like that. That's one area. The second area that I think it's very important is that is something what we call consumer enabler. So basically, it's like it's like those middleware stuff. We've been investing into quite a few account abstractions, like protocol and SDKs quite recently. I think things like that will really to improve the overall user experience in Web3. So a very simple example is that when you play any blockchain games, you probably need to connect your wallet and then approve a bunch of transactions. When I want to purchase an in-game item, I need to approve again. Then I need to have some sort of tokens in my wallet, things like that, right? So that's not a very good experience compared to gaming in the Web2 space, right? Compared to any console games and PC games. But with technologies like account abstractions, basically you were able to turn your wallet into a smart contract-based wallet. So meaning that, let's say for example, within a 1 hour time frame, I can automatically approve all the transactions within that game. So that things like that will vastly improve the user experience for the gamers. It sounds quite easy, but if you put everything on chain, that's something very difficult. So I think those middleware, I think it will be very important, in terms of driving Web3 mass adoption. I think these two areas, I think it's very to me, it's very promising. I want to look for more different projects and protocols in this space. So yeah.
Thank you so much, and good points. Actually, have you heard about the Bondi app? So it says in their terms and conditions basically that they're gonna apply NFTs. It became high for a while in the Philippines. So that's the reason why my mentor also told me, since in the GameFi landscape, the next Axie will not actually be like Axie. But a lot of games is just producing more similar stuff, right? So good points on that. Thank you so much. And let's go to Amirsan.
Thank you. Well, I think, Arthur, you gave really good example. I just wanted to continue to chin up your thoughts. I think the good news is companies like Goldman Sachs, Visa, BlackRock, these guys who are skeptical in the industry, they're getting in the industry and trying to make sense how to navigate. I think that's the first important point to make. The second point is people are going to be quite skeptical about centralized entities after FTX debacle, as Arthur you mentioned. But I'm extremely passionate about API-based business models or DeFi protocols that would empower people where they don't have to provide their identity or go through QIC, but they could use sovereign identity instead. So these two aspects really give me the hope that adoption of Web3 would grow a lot faster across Asia Pacific, and that's what gives me the hope. To continue my thought, Arthur, you mentioned about a scenario in Kuala Lumpur if there's disaster. I look at Turkey. I lived in Istanbul for 6 months, and as you know, right now Turkey is experiencing aftermath of earthquake, and I could definitely relate to what you said in terms of application of blockchain. And the last not least, more and more huge chains, be it the Polygon or Binance or some other, are providing huge grants. And I know you, Toby, you guys got backing from Polygon about $75-100 million for you to invest into projects. This is another great opportunity for startups that might not have understanding or access to capital, but access to grants to build the MVP. Another big thing I think which is important to the mass adoption of the blockchain and helping Web3.
Thank you. And good points also, because that's an additional one, different opinions. And of course, labs. So guys, if you want the grant list, there's a lot of LinkedIn connections actually providing grant lists. So if you're interested, you can search on LinkedIn. They're actually publishing a lot of information where you can get the grants. Because for me, I successfully raised 2.4 million for Place War. We started out applying a grant in Conflux, and we basically nailed it. So we are being helped like for 3 months for marketing. So you gotta really nail that pitch. Even this tech investment show pitching, a lot of people can see you when it comes to the product that you have, what you offer differently than actually in the market, because they're all similar.
I wanted to add on that. Our team spent around a month to research and create the list of grants. So far, we have 100 sources where anyone could apply for the grant, be it the Polygon or Binance and some other. And the rise of Aptos is also what their job is, to increase the adoption of their chains. And they do everything, not only to provide financial resources, but also, as you, Myrtle said, marketing support, PR support, community-driven activities and campaigns. And yes, totally support what you just said.
So don't just focus on the seed and private investment itself, because grants can really help you, not just in monetary terms, but also like resources where you can get press releases, or you can get influencers that's really aligned with your project. And then at the same time, the best people. Investment is not just about money. That's what I always say when it comes to the investors that I have. It's all about building the connection for the long-term vision for mass adoption. Thank you so much, Amirsan. So if you can share that list, so contact Amirsan, follow Sinofy, of course, guys. So don't forget that. And of course, Toby.
Yeah, I think I'm going to answer that question a bit more from an investor perspective, right? So obviously in every bear market, people are going to focus on infrastructure. Right? I don't think this is much new, because that's your safest bet of making an investment and justifying it to your LP base and saying that's the infrastructure, it's going to make the biggest impact. I don't think that's actually at all the path moving forward in terms of mass adoption. Because like at the end of the day, I mean, no one really cares if this is a CK stuff or a decentralized Oracle or whatever, all these other different things from a consumer perspective, right? Because there's always B2B and B2C, right? So if you have a B2B aspect, they're looking for a secure way and like easy way to go into the space. And like you mentioned a couple of, I think you mentioned a couple of things like Visa and all these different things. Yes, they are adopting the space. And I mean, we run a big partnership network with 140 companies to like understand what the needs are and how can we translate this in crypto. And none of them are actually adopting crypto right now. They're just trying to understand what's going on, and they do a tiny bit of things to understand, okay, is that something what we want to do? Is that something we can justify? I mean, they're all listed companies. They're not going to jump ahead and go into crypto and then risk their stock price tanking like, you know, like Google did with the whole AI situation, right? I mean, not going to risk that in a rational world. You figure out before all the issues have been resolved, and then you go into the space, and then you double down if you see use cases happening. But I think that's where, like, you know, platforms like Plug and Play, Y Combinator, us, stuff like this is there in order to help facilitating the way in. Now, gaming, I think you said that, was and is still an interesting way moving forward because it brings people who are already more crypto savvy into the space, right? If you're a gamer, you use Discord, you probably have done something with crypto before, or at least came across the term. So it is a easier transition into the space. I do think also that social, like the whole, I'm not using decentralized social in that sense, but what I'm saying is we need to figure out a platform. And like, you know, a guy from NGC Ventures in Singapore said an amazing sentence, and he was like, we need to find the next WeChat for Web3, right? And I think it's true because like WeChat brought in 1 billion people into the internet in China, and everybody's using it now. And I think that's kind of like the idea what we need to figure out as well. Like, how can we use a everyday use case and really figure out why it should be blockchain and crypto, and then we plug it in and people are going to use it. And that's where the infrastructure piece comes into play, because obviously it needs to be easy, it needs to be secure, and it needs to be like, you shouldn't even mention the term crypto in my opinion, right? I mean, you look at 400 or 500 companies a month in our fund, and everybody always starts with like, oh, I'm a crypto, I'm a blockchain company, this is my tokenomics. It's like, great, but like, what is the use case? Like, why are you in this market? So I think we need to look at this from a bit of a different perspective, right? I mean, it's always technology first and use case second. That's how I feel it. And a lot of companies who got it right, and despite them being centralized or decentralized, they have a product first and technology second. And that's, I think, at the end of the day, when I look at it, also yesterday when I met a lot of you guys here at the round table, you know, a lot of you guys approach it as like, we're a Web 2.5 company in a sense, right? And we kind of like make it easy for people to get into the space. And that's kind of like, in my opinion, how I would do it, right? I mean, I'm not using DeFi and all these different things because it's DeFi. I'm using it because I'm getting better returns than somewhere else. And I think that's what the majority of people's gonna think. Obviously, right now we have a lot of crypto degens, OGs in the space, you know, who are there because of their firm belief that the decentralized world is better, which I'm not disagreeing. But that's not everyone who's going to enter the space. So I think the mindset has to change fundamentally in the space. I think it's going to be driven by social applications in the B2C space, and the B2B will follow. I think it's going to take time until B2B will enter the space fully and not just scratching the surface. And I do think that's not surprised that every fund is focusing on infrastructure and mid-layer and all these different things, just because it's easy to justify it in the market. Not betting on a single game, but betting on an infrastructure which will power a $1 trillion market cap. So that's kind of my take on it.
Thank you so much, and good points. Actually, there's this go-to-market strategy that we done for a Japanese project, promoting that they're Web3, you know, and it gained a lot of traction when we've done the caravan in the Philippines. So we done barangay to barangay, we call it city to city, and it attracted 1,000 users organically in a good way. So it's an orthodox approach when it comes to marketing. So it's also different now when it comes to marketing your project, to be honest. For you to be able to onboard the next billion users in a game, so you need to actually be creative enough that you're not promoting that you're Web3. It's not really necessary, right? Because you can actually do that using your website, but not in a marketing way. Now it's really working, and a lot of people are enjoying that game, and it's like a domino effect already. Thank you so much for the good points. And the next question that we have, actually we have 7, and we're only done with 1 question. So I'm gonna combine everything for you guys, okay? But good points though. So the second question that I have, so here, there's a lot of blockchains already, right? So the new trends like Aptos, Sui, Op, right? Because of the airdrops that's happening, and of course the testnets that's happening as well for the protocols. So the Web3 projects considered to deploy is the factor for the fundraising or not? So what's your take on that in a quick opinion, or your quick opinion?
Right, we'll just gonna be a quick one, 6 minutes, and we'll just answer the second question. I think from the technical aspect of Web3, I think it's utterly important. the deployment of chain, because it's like it really represents the architectures and the designs of the projects per se. The deployment of the chain is of course what determines the performance, the security, and also the scalability of the project itself. But however, I think this is also a double-edged sword. Well, Aptos, it's a lot of bells and whistles that's happening along it. But I think most importantly, it's also to understand what is the functionality of your project. And I think the use cases of your project, and also understanding the sentiment of a project will also determine the deployment of the respective chain itself. I mean, essentially, you still have to see what is the daily users active, what is the daily transactions, and of course the daily wallets of all the layer ones of the chain, like incomparable to like Ethereum, Avalanche, Phantom, Solana. There's a big debate about Solana right now, but yeah, I think as much as exciting with all these new chains that are popping up, but I think it still goes back to the root and the foundation. At the end of the day, you as a project builder will understand what would you want to carry this message about your project, and what would you want this use case to be, and to provide the long-term of value to your investors so long they see this as investable. So at the end of the day, I believe it's important, but it still boils down back to understanding which chains will really suit your project most.
Thank you so much. And how about you?
I guess, it depends on who you ask these questions to, because, for consumers, I think ultimately, they don't necessarily need to know like what chain they're using, because ultimately I think it'll be a cross-chain world where I believe like purpose-specific chain. So I believe I don't believe like any like general purpose chain at all, because if you have no focus, basically you can achieve nothing. But things like Immutable, they're laser focused on games. For Arbitrum, they laser focus on like trading or DeFi stuff. I think that's the future. And ultimately, with all the cross-chain bridges and protocols, people can move the access from one chain to another very smoothly. I think that's the ultimate goal. From a consumer perspective, they probably don't really need to know what chain they're using, as long as the experience is good and the user journey is good. But from a project builder perspective, I think I think that's a very important question. So I think whenever you're able to secure the support from a specific chain or ecosystem, that's very important. So for any new projects, when you try to pick a chain to build on, I strongly encourage you to talk to the ecosystem builder, talk to the BD team of that chain or that ecosystem. Just try to get some sort of support, from them. Also, I think let's say if you working on the games, if you build your game on a chain that has no games, I don't think that's going to work. So it also depends on the ecosystem. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's my answer.
Yeah, that's the reason why most projects needs a brand strategist, because a lot of Twitter bios, it says a BSC based, Ethereum based, right? So needs to be seamless. Thank you so much for touching that point. And how about Amirsan?
Well, I think Cyrus put it so delicately, eloquently, well enough. Technically, you gave layout all my ideas first, but I wanted to extend that invitation. Nobody cares how Visa card, MasterCard works. I think the same applies to what Cyrus has just said, and I totally agree. I think as a B2C user, I would care about seamless experience, taking my assets from point A to point B, regardless protocol, regardless bridge, regardless bit on decentralized or centralized exchange. That's the first requirement or desire. In terms of the chains, just like in .com era, out of dozens of participants, 2 or 3 survived. In my personal view, the same would apply to chains. For example, we could talk about Ethereum. Arthur, you give several examples about Solana, which I agree with, or Binance or Polygon. I think these guys are competing for the market share. Out of dozens of chains, 3 or 4 would survive, and the rest will fade away. And all those chains that would survive, they would provide utmost support to their communities to increase the adoption. That's the second point. And the last point, that I have in terms of startups who are interested, as long as they build infrastructure-centered projects, in my opinion, chains would be interested in providing the grants. It's not just one NFT store, it's not just one metaverse, but Toby, to what you said in terms of China, which I agree. I lived in China 5 years. What I liked about strategic thinking of Chinese people, when they look at the problem, they look at the problem as in the infrastructure. It's not just problem as in one problem as a symptom, but they look at the big picture. Whereas in the West, in North America, when they look at the problem, they look at the separate entity dealing with the symptom. And I think looking at the big picture, solving problem as in the big picture makes a lot more sense, which is important. And I totally agree in terms of WeChat story that you mentioned, scratching the surface, and that was a good point.
I completely agree as well because when we launched Place War, actually the friends of the VCs launched a tool infrastructure for the NFTs, which is actually like the headache when it comes to having or being a scholar for GameFi, right? So they built an infrastructure for NFT rentals and aggregator, and I completely agree with the Chinese landscape as well. And of course, lastly, Tobias.
I keep it short because I think you ran out of time anyway.
Yeah, but we'll keep it short. After that, the last one that you will answer. So I'll go ahead and end it up. What's your advice as well for the entrepreneurs that's actually raising funds, because that's very important in this whole panel since we're running out of time. So starting from you, going back, like a quick advice after your answer to the last question.
So I would love to say that it doesn't matter on what chain you're building, but it actually does. And it maybe doesn't so much matter from the perspective of, like that we anyway go cross-chain and blah, 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 but it matters from a grant perspective, it matters from an investability perspective, it matters from the developers you're trying to hire, it matters from the community. We're still early, right? So obviously, if you're building on Tesla's, I think, an interesting example for it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff been built on Tesla's before, and a lot of people ask, why did you decide to do that, right? The same as like Hive, I think, is a great chain. It's gasless, it's very great for games, but very few have actually figured that out. We invested in a company called Koinos recently, which is the founders of Steam and Hive, if you're familiar. They built a new layer 1, which is for high put-through chains, right? So we have a company in our portfolio, they did 1.8 billion transactions on chain. If you do this on Ethereum, you are Ethereum. But like, that's not what's happening, right? So I think you need to figure out what kind of platform are you building, where is your target user base, where are your developers, and then you decide what chain you're building. But obviously, at the end of the day, talk to all of them. You have good connections with Polygon and many others. So I think it's really about understanding the use case and not just taking the first change you can get, or like where a grant is being presented to you. Money is not everything, right? There's a lot of different factors to it. To your second question, in terms of advice for fundraising in this market. So most of the people say it's a great market. It's not, to be very honest, right? I mean, obviously, yes, projects still get funded, but if you look at the data, right, I think from end of December until end of January in 2022, we had $1 billion invested in Web3 startups. Now, a year later, it's 105 million, right? So funding went down by 10x in a month, which is significant, right? So the whole point right now is present yourself as a very resourceful company, right? Be very, very, very determined on your burn rates compared to the money you have raised. We did an exercise with almost every single portfolio in our company portfolio to restructure the burn, get rid of people we don't actually need, stop these marketing efforts if we don't need them, and just really get the heads down building until this market is over. And I do think it's probably not going to get better in whole 2023. I think it's going to be 2024. So like targeting 12 to 18 month of runway, of conservative runways, I think very, very positive, because you never want to be in a situation in this market where you don't have leverage raising. But if you run out of cash, there's only so much you can say to your investor. They can basically push through all the terms they want. They can drive down the valuation, and you either have to liquidate the business or you have to follow. So be mindful that don't start raising when you're in 6 months of runway, 3 months of runway. already think about it when you're at 10, 12 months of runway, because the process is going to take you 2-3 months, especially if you're targeting a priced round or if it's not a token. It can take longer, right? And then you still want to have that leverage and you still want to have that good standing position to be able to get your terms or closer to your terms as you want. And of course, like I always say, it's product first, right? Understand and give the investor the very clear understanding of why your business is used by people, and it's not just, another, crypto play with no user usability.
Thank you so much. And Amirsan?
Well, to make it short, there are two things that I want to emphasize based on my experience in previous failures. And I learned it from this Airbnb founder, Brian Chesky. I think the first important thing in building any sort of company, it doesn't have to be Web3 or Web2. Any company, I think it's important to set the culture internally and then externally as an extension to the community. I think unless you have a culture within the team, regardless how talented they are, people may leave, and losing the right people could lead to disaster. That's the first lesson that I learned. And second one, for example, Toby has mentioned about a number of digits, processes, looking long term. In my view, I would look into having 100 most dedicated followers who would support me than having 1,000 people who just follow me and do nothing. So I would look into that because I believe community-led projects have promise, hope, and power, and money would follow up. If I handle that part of the story with a promising product, I believe I have a good story to tell. So these are the two takeaways I could think of for anyone who's building the company.
Yes, good points. And I'm really pro organic community. And you know that, Amirsan. So next up,
I'll keep it short. So to all the founders and project builders, I think the most important of all is that you need to find the right product market fit before you start anything meaningful. Don't just build something because you need to build something, right? So I've seen thousands of decks and pitches, and basically perhaps they have a good product, they have a good team, but I don't see a good product market fit. That's not gonna work. So I think finding a right product market fit, it's crucially important for any startups and projects.
thank you so much. And lastly, of course, to end up this panel session, Arthur.
So I think if you look at what happened in the last 2 years, I think let's try to recall back what happened 30 years ago, that the whole entire .com bubble itself. And I think right now, what the entire digital asset space is going through, is definitely going through the whole reinstallation phase. I'm super stoked of understanding what happened in the year 2021, completely weeding out all the bad apples in the entire ecosystem. And this point of time, we have really good project builders. However, with that being said, also VCs are no longer as dumb as how it was previously. They're putting on a lot of common sense hacks from this year onwards, especially what happened to Luna, the Three Arrow Capitals, and of course with the recent FTXs as well. I think it all goes down it boils down back right now, like what is the product market fit? I truly emphasize on literally these three things: the market fit, the product fit itself, and also the founder fit. And I think by putting these three coming together, you were able to assemble something that's so phenomenal and something that's really going to be very impactful to the community. So most importantly, when you do a pitch in front of a VC, it's no longer about, just forget about all the fluff and all the bells and whistles, the vision and the mission. Those are so 2020, guys. What we really want to see is attraction. We want to see real metrics. Really, it's no longer about the vanity metrics anymore, but really solid metrics is exactly what we are looking for. What's your user base? What's your users growth? And of course, what's your revenues as well? And I think by putting all that together, I think there's a lot of, I think it's just a matter of time. The VCs and the PE firm will be unlocking the dry powder. There's still liquidity in the market. And I believe that we're definitely going to see these big splashes that will be happening sometime this year and next year, of course. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And I will close it off by adding in some important stuff. is for you to add personal branding, especially if you're a project owner. Because without you being seen in the space, you'll be left nothing. Because it really made me sustain my career here by really pushing personal branding. Actually, someone told me that it's really vain of you just posting all of your stuff, but I didn't care. But because of my personal branding, it went through a lot of achievements, and at the same time successful fundraising, and now we're still building the community and of course striving for mass adoption. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, guys.